Welcome to today's webinar, Easing into Finances with Church360 Ledger. Glad you joined us today. My name is Dave Farnham and I'm a software consultant here with Concordia Technology Solutions. You'll see my name and my face, my contact information here. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Be glad to help as we go throughout the webinar. A little bit of housekeeping that we have today on our webinar. I want to go over a few things. So we'll be having about 50 minutes for our presentation today, followed by about 10 minutes for questions and answers at the end. You can ask questions throughout, so in the question box, just submit your question and we'll be glad to answer that at the end of the webinar today. It's possible that we might even answer that as we go through the webinar today. And there will be a recording that will be shared at the end. So we'll share that, and we do that for folks that sometimes do want and have signed up, but for some reason or another they're not able to attend. So we do record this and we do share it with you, and even for those that do attend, we'll send this to you as soon as it is ready to be posted. So this is a picture that we do like to share at times, and this is the Concordia Publishing House booth that was set up for the 1904 World's Fair. So it's kind of interesting there. You'll look and see a number of men that are in the booth there. Of course, you'll see that none of them have either a laptop or a smartphone in hand. That's something that, of course, has come around a lot later than where we were at 1904. So, but we have come a long way from there. Actually, at Concordia Publishing House now, we have what we call the Innovation Center. This is a place that we come together and have meetings, and we collaborate, share ideas and thoughts for ministry, and then create products that are going to be complementary for the church. We have, with Concordia Technology Solutions, been developing software since 1984. Concordia Technology Solutions is a part of Concordia Technology, parties of Concordia Publishing House. We're the church administration division of Concordia Publishing House. Now we're looking today at Church360 Ledger, but Church360 Ledger is actually a part of a greater suite of products called Church360. And those other products that are a part of Church360 are Members, and Members actually is a software system that handles all your membership information and data, as well as attendance and offering information. The other product associated with Church360 is Unite. Unite is a complete church website builder, and so it's a website that's built specifically for churches that has both a public side to it, but also has a private side too, allowing you to be able to create an online community that's private for just your members to be able to communicate with each other and post information that's more applicable just for the members of your church and are sharing information with each other. Well, as we were making and creating Church360 Ledger, some of the things that we wanted to keep in mind is we wanted to, as we were developing the software, is to make it intuitive. Intuitive basically meaning something that's very easy to learn and understand. We also wanted to make sure that since this is an online cloud-based software, that it was secure and is going to be safe. The other thing that we wanted to make sure that we did was that we had a focus on the software that was more of a church focus. So there are, of course, other finance software that are out there, but a good number of them do not have a church focus, and that's what we wanted to make sure that when we created Ledger is that it was more focused upon the needs of the church and how we operate doing our finances at a church level. The things that we'll look at today during our webinar, we're going to have an overview of the Ledger software as we run through things today. We'll also take a complete tour of the software together. And there'll be, of course, as I mentioned before, a time for questions and answers. So some assumptions that I'm going to be making really as we come into today's webinar. One of those assumptions is that you have some familiarity with church finances. And the other assumption that I'm going to make is that you're possibly new to Church360 Ledger. You haven't seen much of it or haven't seen any of it before. And the other thing is that you're extremely busy. So a lot of us have very busy schedules. We're setting aside time here, so I want to make sure that we're using our time wisely and being able to cover as much as possible in this shorter amount of time as we take a look at Church360 Ledger today. So one of the things, and ask any pastor if he happens to be teaching through the Bible, whenever he gets to the part about money, that's not an easy subject to talk about. And the same thing is true with this too. Anytime that we have to talk about anything financial or dealing with money, it's just a very difficult subject to talk about. And certainly in a church, that's just the way it is, really. Every dollar that's been given to the church is a dollar that's been donated. And every donation that comes from each individual is a donation that has come from their heart. They willingly gave the money to the church. So this makes stewardship absolutely critical for us in the church. We want to make sure that every dollar is used in the right way and that we're handling God's money that He has given to us to use to spread the gospel and to build the kingdom of God. We want to make sure that we're being wise stewards with that. And accountability makes accountability critical as well. So we want to make sure that we're accountable with the resources that God has given to us to manage for His church. One of the things a couple things that we wanted to do as we were creating the software too, we wanted to make sure that we prevented the ill intention from doing wrong, so that there's checkpoints in here so that everything that you do in the software, there's going to be really like an audit trail throughout. The other thing, and this is really what I see more than others in anything as I talk with people, is we're trying to prevent the well-intentioned, and that's most everyone that I've ever dealt with, from making mistakes. And most of us that we're in here into any software that we're using, we don't want to make a mistake. And that's absolutely true here with Ledger too. So that's why we've tried to make the software that's going to help prevent making mistakes in the software. We're going to take a look at that too as we get into Ledger. Well, how do you do this? How do you do finances in a congregation? Well, there's different ways. Some churches do it with a volunteer ministry treasurer. Others may have more of a paid finance coordinator. Some have an elected church treasurer, and others might have an elected finance board. So different churches do things in different ways. Yours may have something similar to this, or it may be something slightly different. Church360 Ledger was designed to really increase accountability into the software and with the resources that we're taking care of and managing. And it was designed to help prevent mistakes, as we just talked about there too. Well, we did this by really focusing on two key personas as we were beginning to create our software. And those personas was, one, we're looking at someone who is a church treasurer. This person is someone who's an experienced accountant that may have this as a day job and been trained in that. Maybe they've gone to school and they have their degree in that, and that's the field that they're operating in. They are a person that's overseeing all aspects of the church financial ministry, and that they do care about the details, and they rely on the audit trail, so they follow that. The other person that we had in mind as we were creating the software is that person that's a willing volunteer. That's someone that steps in and says, you know what, I know we don't have anybody that we can pay that has that background or that does this professionally in their career, but I am a person that I understand some of the basics. I know how to balance a checkbook. I know how to enter some transactions, and I'm okay with that. and I care deeply about the ministry of the church. But you know what? Here's the thing, is that I don't want to make a mistake. So we were keeping all of these things in mind as we were creating the software. Both of these people, we helped provide the accountability that both of them require. So some of the goals that I have today in our webinar is to provide for you a real-life example as we're going through the software. We're going to explore all the areas of the software, and hopefully by the end of this you're going to be able to better answer this question than when we first started, and that's, how can I use Church360 Ledger to support my ministry? So we'll look at some different things like income streams, multiple expense accounts, specific budget, ministry leaders needing access or different ministry leaders needing access, and reporting that you may need to provide for the church at large to be able to see some information. So before we get started, I do want to show you one other screen here, and we'll kind of get started after that and looking directly into the software. Always know that there's some people and some folks that might come in here that are using our Shepherd Staff software, so I just kind of want to show you a quick screenshot of some things to let you know that can you bring information over from Shepherd Staff? Yes, you can. There is some information that can come over. It really depends on how you have Shepherd Staff set up as to exactly what information that can flow over. We can certainly answer that more at a different time, but this will be one of the first screens that you'll see when you're setting up. You'll either set up your first book or you'll be able to import your information from Shepherd Staff. And some of those, and again, it depends on how you have Shepherd Staff set up, would include some of these things here. So bear with me just a moment. I'm going to change some things here and actually take off the screen here where you're seeing my picture. And then we're just going to go on here and we'll start off with seeing the rest of the webinar. So bear with me just one moment while I bring this into play, and we'll get started with taking a look at the rest of everything here. So, all right, so what we should see here in front of us now is the Church360 Ledger sign-in screen. Now with this sign-in screen, we will note that first of all, you have to sign in before you can do anything, but also here each church is going to have, and I have a specific one here just for my training webinar, you'll have your own customized URL. Notice that there is a lock here up at the top in the address bar, so it is a secure site. And you'll log in. Each user will be logging in with their own login credentials. So I'm going to log in today with my login credentials, and then we'll get going. Now, of course, my credentials are going to show me, or is going to provide for me my access based upon my login that's been given to me previously. So I'll go ahead and log in and sign in here. Now as I do so, we're going to go over just the layout of the screen here to begin with. So we'll start off here at the upper part, top left, and we're going to start here with this where we see the dollar sign with the orange square there around it. This is an icon that's going to, and a button that's going to always take us back to this home page. And this is the home page that we're on. Moving to the right here, we're going to see, this is the name of our financial set of books. We'll talk about that a little bit more in detail as we talk about financial books, but I'm going to scoot over here to the right just a little bit. This next icon is a printer icon, so that's your print queue icon. The next icon to the right here is going to be my pending transactions icon. To the right of that are going to be the icon that shows me my reports. To the right of that is this little cog. It's my settings cog. We'll spend some time looking at that. And then this is my user settings. So if I need to change my password, I can do so, or I can log out from here too. Now directly underneath this, you're going to see the new transactions line and button. You'll be able to see that from there you can do different options some different things that you can do in your transactions area. Immediately underneath the transactions, you'll see there's three options here: export to Excel, your print icon and print button, and then your date selector. So the date selector will allow you to be able to choose by year, or within that year if you wanted to see just the first quarter or just a given month, or you can come down here to the very bottom of this little window and you can select a date range, exactly the date range that you need to see. Now you will see these three: export to Excel, print, and the date selector option on most of the screens that we will be on throughout Ledger. You will always find the new transaction. You'll see the icons across the top here throughout, no matter where we go on Ledger. Now below the export to Excel, the print, and the date selector, you'll see the four major areas of the software, and that is the assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. And if you're a treasurer, you know exactly what we are talking about with these four major areas. Now you can click into these and begin to drill into your assets or your income, expenses. If I click into my assets here, I'll begin to go into some more of the assets. So there's my central trust, and I can click into that. I can then go into my checking account and click into that. And then once you've drilled in enough, you'll be able to actually see that there is a reconcile feature here too. So that way you can reconcile, bring in your bank statement. We'll just go ahead and do this since we're already here. Save us from having to go back to this, but we'll click on here. Once you're into a reconcile mode, you'll notice that the screen does turn green. It's the only time that you're going to see a screen change as far as the color background. But then you'll put in your statement date, you'll put in your starting balance, your ending balance, and then you'll begin to select these different things that you're going to reconcile here. And then once you get to off by 0, you'll know that you've reconciled them, and then you can save that. So once you've reconciled something, you will not have the option down here below. That same thing that you've reconciled once will no longer pop up into the screen to make available for you to reconcile again a second time accidentally. So I'm going to click again back to this home icon. Again, that's the $ here at the top. And then we'll go back down this home screen here, and this is just really telling me my running balance. Again, I'm looking at the whole year of 2017. This is my running balance, and down here really I'm seeing a scroll of my transaction history for the year. So this is what I'm seeing so far as I scroll down there. It's really like a limitless scroll, or at least it's going to take me back to the beginning of the year, and then it will stop. So for right now, we're going to go back up here to the top in our icons. We're going to click on the settings cog here, and now I'm going to go down to books. Now in the books area, we talked about this before, but this is, and I would say this, most churches are just going to have one set of financial books. It is possible that you can have multiple sets of financial books. I'll explain that a little bit here. A set of financial books means that for example, you'll see the Crosspoint Church here, and then you'll see underneath that Crosspoint Preschool. If in your church setting you had a preschool or a daycare, or maybe you even had a school that was apart, they met at the same basic location, but financially they were absolutely independent from the church. At that point in time, you can set them up with a brand new set of books. They will be completely separate from the Crosspoint Church set of financial books, and that way they can operate on them on their own. So once you've added a new one, if I could click here, then I could put in here Crosspoint School if we had one, and then I could put my starting month for my fiscal year and beginning date. So if, for example, if we were going to start a school in January of 2018, it'd be kind of an odd time to start a school, but if you did, you really might want to backdate your starting date for a couple months prior to that, just so if you had some transactions that you needed to put in there before January 1 of 2018, you could do so, because if you do put a starting date of January 1, it won't really allow you to add any transactions before that starting date of the beginning of that book activity, as you can see there. So to change your set of books here, you would just merely go up here to the top where it says Crosspoint Church, and if you have access, then you'd be able to come in here and go into the Crosspoint Preschool. Now, this is just as an example. We don't have anything we've ever done here, but just to give you an idea of, that's a separate set of books. I'm going to go back here to the Crosspoint Church. All right, so we looked here in the settings area and we looked at books. Now, what we're going to start off here now is we're just going to jump into the chart of accounts. Chart of accounts, as we saw on that main home screen, were your assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. What you'll see here, assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. Now, I will let you know that when you start off, you may find that, wow, we're ready to go. I've got some transactions that I need to enter in here, but I want to caution anyone as you're beginning is always make sure that you set up your chart of accounts first. Do your due diligence. If you need assistance, I would say reach out to someone who is an accountant to help you to make sure that you're setting up your chart of accounts properly first, and then you can begin doing transactions. It's a much better way to do that than to start making transactions and then having to backtrack, and it's just a better way to begin. So as we set up here the chart of accounts, and we'll start here with assets. What is an asset? Well, the site itself, we can give you some clarification on some of those things too if you don't have much idea on what are all these things. Well, we can kind of give you an idea on that too in our help system, and you'll find that down here too. So you can come into the I down here in the lower right hand corner, click on this, and if you put in here asset, and you can say basic terms to understand when using Ledger, I can click on that, and then it's going to show you what's an asset account. And then it's going to go through other things. What's a liability account, income account, expense account. So those are things you can even click on this, see original article, and it's going to open up this. So it's going to give you additional help there. Just know that you're not alone in this process. We're always here to help and assist you. You can always come down here to send us a message. You can type in your question and or comment, and that will come directly to us. You'll also find that you have our 800 number into the support team. So we are here for you. If for some reason this was done like after our hours, we'll try to get back with you as soon as we're back in the office. And you just simply hit send, and that comes right into us. Well, an asset account really here is just anything it's really including money, building, land, equipment that the church has. One thing that I'm going to show here to you at the bottom is that there are these buttons down here too that will say new category and new account. So as we see how this is organized up here, we'll see that there is indented options here. This one is a central trust, as you'll see where my cursor is, and inside this central trust you're going to see that there is a checking account and a savings account. So this is where our monies are at, but we have made this to be a category. Now a category, I'm going to define that for us break it down in a way that may help to understand that. For me, what helps me to understand that is more like in like a Windows PC computer. Once you get into your document area, you're going to have a place where you create folders. And inside the folders, you're going to put your documents, and you're going to put maybe your PDF documents, your Word documents, or you're going to put in Excel spreadsheets, things that you've saved inside that file folder. And that file folder is named a certain thing based upon the subject of what you're going to organize inside that. So it's kind of the same concept here. You're going to have categories. So this checking is a category. Actually, the central trust is going to be one. The checking account is a subcategory underneath there, and the same being true of savings. Each one of these then underneath there, the central trust checking, is an actual account. So accounts are going to be indented underneath some of these categories, and each one of these categories then it's going to roll up. So when you have an account, say for example this central trust savings, it's indented under savings, and savings is indented under the central trust. This is $61,600, and that's going to be added to all of these as well. So the central, the savings is going to be added to the checking, which is going to give you the total in your central trust here. So all of these are rolling back up here to give you your total. So I hope that's a little bit more understandable of how you break that down, but you can create a new category and have multiple subcategories, and you can create as many accounts as you want to. You merely just drag and drop these and drag them up or down and place them wherever you need to. We're going to click here now to liabilities. Again, same type of concept with the categories and accounts. We'll find this the same thing in income and expenses. Your liabilities basically are going to be your debts, both your short and long term. Most people are thinking about their mortgage in regards to a liability that we have at the church. And then now we're moving down to income accounts. Now income accounts for most churches kind of defined as they're going to be more of your offerings that are coming into the church. So that's the income of a church is given through your offerings. So you'll see things like your general fund, mission fund, youth building, education, and things like that. We're going to go down now. Again, you can always see at the bottom here, you can create new categories and new accounts in each one of these areas. So now in my expenses too, you can make expense accounts. You can make multiple expense accounts and divide those out based upon how you want to divide these. So have as many of these as need be to help keep track of how the church is spending its money. So that's really what the expense part of the accounts is all about, is how is the church spending its money and how can we keep better track of that. So in this example here today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new account. And for us today, I'm going to say that we're having a new church year starting up, a new educational church year starting up. And we have an event that we are going to have here as we're bringing in our new church education year. We're calling it our fall roundup. So I'm going to put this in here. Now I can put in an account number here. And you'll also notice here, but you don't have to put in an account number. You'll notice that a lot of these do, but for us, because all of these do, I'm just going to say, you know what, I'll show you that you don't have to have that in here. It also makes mention here of an initial balance. Well, if I want to go ahead and just create this and I click submit, it's going to also tell me, hey, you know what, you've got to start something here. So I have to put something in here, and I'm just going to put 0. So I will click submit. So I've added this in here. So you notice now that it's in here, and now I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to set this into the area that I need it to be and want it to be. So I'm just going to kind of bring this up a little bit further, and I'm going to set this right here in under my education. So I've got my fall roundup. So again, all of these expenses here from Vacation Bible School on up to worship expenses are going to total up into my total for this category of education of $19.82.34. So hopefully that makes sense for you. After you've done all these things, you're going to want to save your changes. So if you don't save changes again and you go to navigate to another field, like for some reason I'm going to go ahead and come in here and click to something else like my payees, it's going to say, hey, I've rearranged some accounts and I've added a new account. What do you want to do with this? Do you want to save these? And yes, I do. I want to confirm that I want to save these. And also you'll see here too, and this is for your own safety. After you've been into the software a while, it's going to ask you for your own protection. Your session's about to expire. Do you want to do this? And that's so that it's not left open ongoing should you walk away from your computer. So I'm going to say, yes, keep me logged in. So that is our chart of accounts. So we've got that set up. We kind of talked about adding in a new expense account, which we did under our education. Now our payees. What is our payee? Well, this is all of those people that we pay money to, write a check to, or we pay any of our invoices to. You'll also notice up here at the top that it'll give me a message to say my chart of accounts was updated. So I know that I've saved that. I'm going to go ahead and click that and close that out. And I'm going to add a new payee here. But before I do that, I'll show you here as well that you can click into some of these payees. Like let's say I clicked into the AT&T Universe or Uverse, and it will show me if there's been any type of activity in that account. So you can see some history there based upon the time frame that we have selected. But I'm going to go down to the bottom, click on, I'm going to add a new payee, and this one I'm going to add a new payee for Walmart. So then you can put in Walmart, you can put in the address for the payee that we're adding. So I'll add that in here, and so we'll get this in here. So now we could use this as a payee if we need to. You can put any additional notes that you want to in there too, and I'll click submit. So that's how you add a new one, and again it puts it into alphabetical order here, and the payee was created so we know that we've done that correctly. All right. Okay, so now we've got a payee that's in our software as well as everything else. We know that we're going to need to use those. Now what I'm going to do is jump up to an area called transactions. So we're going to take a look at these. So what about these different transactions? Well, first of all, we can create a transfer. We can move money from one area to another if we need to. We do have a memo field. Sometimes that might be helpful for us. It's an optional field, but if we move some money from one asset to another, let's say we're going to move it from our savings account to our checking account, and if I put $100 in here, you know, I might want to put in here that this is a memo and why I'm doing what I'm doing. That might be a great idea to do that. Today I'm not going to do that, but I could just to give you an idea that that's possible. So, and let's say that I'm coming in here and I'm going to move it from the savings account to my checking account. So I'm really just moving it from one asset to another. Now, if when I do this too, it's going to show me underneath here, it's going to automatically take care of this and say, okay, these are your credits and debits. Now, as I put this in here, I can put the date in here as well. If I go to save this and it's not the way it should be, it means it's not accurate, then it's going to tell me that right now my credits, which is $100, do not match my debits, which are only $90. So in our Ledger software, it's going to make sure, again, we talked about this early on, and that is where we have a volunteer or actually anybody that's using the software, and we were doing this when we were creating the software, making sure that the software helps you so that those that don't want to make mistakes are a lot less likely to make mistakes, because the software helps you to know if you're making a mistake before you save anything. So in this example, we can see that we're really $10 short here, and that's why it throws us on this second line if we added the wrong amount. So if I go back up here and I just add the correct amount in here, now everything is going to equal out here, and I click save, and my transaction will be completed, and it's created. So that is one of our transactions, is just transferring money. So the next one we're going to look at, and you can even see that here on our list of transactions here on our home page, now that we've transferred money from one to another. We could even see that if we wanted to, if we went to our general ledger report, we would be able to see that there too. Let's go over here to deposit. Now in the deposit, let's say that we were going to enter in a deposit, maybe that would be for Sunday's offering. So I will put in here offering, and we'll add this here. So I could put in here, there wouldn't be a payee, that's optional anyway. But let's say we're going to bring that into our checking account. The amount would be, so let's say that's the amount that we're bringing in. So $56.62 and 75 cents. So as we bring this in, we're going to deposit the money, but we're also going to appropriate it into the proper income accounts. So we all know that when people give money, they're going to give, and a lot of people will give just basically to the general fund. There's others that are going to give money that's actually going to be more targeted to certain things too. So they're going to say, hey, this is going to be given to the missions fund, the youth fund, or whatever it happens to be. So we're going to say in the general fund, I'm going to select that, but not all the funds went there. We can say that, you know, there was $5,010 that went to the general fund, and and that's 75 cents. So we have this amount here, and the other amount that we're going to see too is the missions fund. So people gave to the missions fund. Whoops. Putting the amount in the fund field. So then we're going to say that $200 was given to missions, and the building fund was the next one, and so we're going to just say that the rest of it was given to the building fund. So if there was any leftover money, again, this is your software working for you, it would tell you the balance of what's remaining down here, and you're going to have to make sure that it's all appropriated for, so that all your credits and debits match. And then, again, you would save that. You'll see on some of these different transactions that we can do, you can make something reoccurring. Now, of course, we know that the same amount is not given from week to week, but if you did need to make a certain, thing reoccurring, you could, as far as a deposit. And a lot of times that wouldn't be the case, but you can do that. So if I click Save, it would bring that in. I want to show you some other ways too, that if there may be some that are here today with us that their church already has the Church360 member software. So there's another way that you can automatically bring in those pending transactions that took place in the Church360 member software and automatically bring them into Ledger. That's done up here in our pending transactions area. So once I click here, then I can come down here and say, oh, well, look at this. This is where I need to, appropriate these funds and bring in the deposits that have already been made. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this August 6th, click on that deposit, and it's going to bring that in. So now what I can do is just say this is an offering for 6/17. There is no payee. Where are we going to put this, into what asset? Well, it's going to be brought into the central checking. Now you'll notice over here on the right hand side that we have some things that automatically got filled in. Now why is that the case? And the answer to that one is that we have already previously connected what was brought in from members into the appropriate income accounts previously. So these little colored buttons over here for building, general fund, missions, and youth are indicating that this money is coming over from these funds from the Church360 member software, we've already connected them. Now, if this building fund, if this was not the correct building, I could, certainly take that out. But it is already pre-connected with the correct building fund, so I really don't need to change that. So it's already here, and now all my debits and credits match. There's no remaining balance that is unconnected with income accounts. So I'm good to go with this, and then I can click Save. So now that it's going to bring in everything that's done from members. So that's the automatic part that can be done and brought in from your Church360 members, making it much easier for you. Again, this treasurer here will never know who gave what from the actual offerings themselves, but they do know the totals, and they do know how the total was broken down into the general funds and the individual unique funds that it was contributed to. And that's really all that a treasurer really needs to know. So again, we've looked at transfer, deposit, and now let's look at payments and checks. Now, payments and checks, I'll mention this. The difference between these two would be that your payments are basically you're coming into the software here, registering a payment that you've already made. So maybe it's something that was a purchase online that you've already made the payment for, but you're just registering it here in your software. A check is when you're actually physically going to be writing out that check and making the check to that particular payee, or you're going to print your check from the Ledger software. So either way, but so the payment would be something like you're going to make a payment for your internet services. So that could be done there, and you could come in and put in your payee, so maybe it's your internet, and you can say where that's going to be paid from and what expense account that this is going to be taken from, so that you can appropriate that correct amount. So again, this is something that you can set up to be a recurring. So if you have this exact same amount, you can set up that automatically, and it's going to give you a reminder in your pending transactions area that says, hey, maybe on the 15th of each month that you have this payment that needs to be made. So it doesn't automatically do it for you, but it does send a reminder for you to get it done and make sure that that payment has been made. And then you can come in here and make this. So again, it automatically will do your debits and credits here for you based upon what asset that you're pulling it from and what expense accounts that it's going to be used from. So it could be that you're going to say this is for July's, or it could be August internet fees. So that's what you're going to put in here, and then click Save. So the transaction was completed in that way. The other way that we looked at was a check. So let's say in regards to our fall roundup that we entered that expense account here, that we need to make sure that we're going to spend some money for that fall roundup, and as we do so, we're going to come in here and say what we're spending the money for. So we're going to say this is a fall roundup, and it could be for supplies. We'll just keep it generic. Now the payee is going to be who we just recently added, so we're going to make that Walmart. Notice that when I put this in here, the payee is already brings in that information. It looks like the check that will be filled out. We're going to say where we're pulling the money from. So let's say that all of the things, this might be for all of our supplies, it was $125.36. And the expense account is actually going to come from that fall roundup expense. So notice that it's here, and we can do that here. It's got our correct debits and credits here. We wouldn't necessarily want to make this recurring because it is a one-time purchase, and I'll click on Save. Now you'll notice here at the top it says the check was added to your print queue. So I can go to my print queue by merely clicking on this, and that's fine, or, and I'll close this out, or I'll go up here with the icon so that you can see the icon. So we'll click on this printer queue. There's two things that are in my printer queue. Now on this one, there's a couple different things. So we've got two different things in my printer queue. Now if I'm going to print to this, and I'm going to print from my printer onto the check, then one thing I have to make sure is that I have the correct check to print to. Now we use Checks Plus, and so you can find that information actually on our website of where to purchase that from. It's not directly from us, but the Checks Plus is a company that provides the checks for us that works with Church360 Ledger, and you can get those checks and then use those to print to and put them in your printer. So if I was going to print that, I would just merely come up here to the print button, click on that, and it would print it. If I want to mark this now as printed, so I've just said, well, maybe I just hand wrote it out and I'm not printing it, I'll just now mark that it's printed so that it will be off of my printer queue. So this number 2 up here on the printer queue is now going to change to 1 once I click on that. And so 1 check will be removed from the print queue. I'm going to confirm that, and we're down to 1. So there's 1 remaining, and that's just the one that we did today. So we've looked at the transfer, deposit, payment, check, and the last one is a journal entry. Now for those that are already more you're an accountant and you know for yourself well, everything really is a debit and credit, you know, and well, everything really in here is truly just a journal entry. So for those that might have asked themselves as they're watching this, well, isn't all those transactions really, aren't they just journal entries anyway? And the answer to that is yes, they exactly are. And you can enter everything in as just a journal entry. But for many others too, it makes it a lot more easier, and I will say this for myself. For me, it makes it a whole lot easier for me in making sure that I get my debits and credits correct by using something that's going to pull that information correctly for me, and that's by using one of these other options here, knowing what I want to do, and then just doing it and letting the software work there for me to make sure that I get it correctly. But for those that are experienced, you can go straight into a journal entry and do that. So that is an option for you. So then we're going to go back up here to our settings area here, and we'll just go over a few other different things. This is just our general settings page. As you begin, you'll put in your church name. The customer number is really your account number that's going to be with us internally. We'll add that in there really for you. You'll choose what your check style is, either the middle check or a top check. So you can choose which one you have. And then we also have the option, if you get the check that has a requirement for 2 signatures, and a number of churches do that just because of accountability and safety. You can do that there, and then the church address and the phone number there. So that's there. We've looked at books, we've looked at Payees, general, and well, you know what? I'm going to jump up here to budgets real quick too. So we'll take a look at budgets. Again, just so you always see this as well, you're going to see the export to Excel and the date picker too, so you can choose that. In here, we can come down here, we can actually go into that expense account, if you remember, where we had the fall roundup. So if we needed to put money in here and say, hey, this is going to be for our fall roundup, and this is setting the budget. If we want to stay in this total field here, we could do so. And if we wanted to say we're going to give a total of like 250, well, let's say we're going to give a total of $240, and I put this in the total field, what it's going to do, and then I hit enter, it's going to spread that $240 equally amongst all 12 months of the year. So we'll do that for you automatically, making budgeting much easier if you want to spread it across. Now, I don't have to do that. Again, I can come in here, and if I know that really I'm going to be spending more money in August, and I know I'm only going to be spending it at that time, I can put all the money there and do it that way. So that way, again, here's my total, but I'm not wanting to spread that evenly across all 12 months. I'll just put it in 1 month. So that is something that can be done in that way, and that's just however you do that. Notice that you can go into anything else too, so that you can see what was the previous year's budget and what was the previous year's actual expenses for that. So it gives you a better idea on how to budget for the following year. You will be able to export this information into Excel, so you can click on Export to Excel, and it will open up everything here just nearly as you see it almost, but in an Excel format. But it does not allow you, once you're in Excel, to be able to use it to be able to put the total here and having that easily spread out equally amongst all of your months. That's only found here in Ledger when you do that. But if you did put in certain months or did some budgeting for certain line items here, you would be able to copy and paste like certain things from this column, and then copy it from Excel and bring that and paste it back into your budget sheet here on Ledger. And we can help you with that too as well, and we do have some helps available for you with that. Again, as we talk about helps, we do have a support team, and so we are accessible by calling and or even by emailing as well. So that's always available. Again, that help area you can get to is right here in the I, where it's going to get you the phone number, and you can also email directly into our support team. So we do try to stay very responsive with that as well. All right, so I'm going to go back up here to my settings cog, and we'll look at users and roles. So we'll first look at roles here. You have every single account is going to have an administrator, and with an administrator you'll be able to see and do anything in the software that you need to, edit, make changes, anything that you need to do with that. You can add additional roles in here, and I'll show you just one sample of that. Let's say we had a youth leader, and the youth leader came to us as a treasurer and said, hey Dave, I really need to come in here. I need to be able to know how much money we've spent, and I need to see where that money was spent and kind of always know where we're at. How much money is left in my accounts? So we can do that. We can say, you know what, we're going to make this role applicable so that they can get in to see the Crosspoint Church set of financial books. But what we're going to do is we're not checking anything in transactions whatsoever. So they cannot make any transaction or edit anything there. Under the management side, we're not letting them manage any chart of accounts. They can't add new things. They can't view all the accounts. They can view, and this is a little bit harder to see here, but this does say they can view 6 selected accounts. So with that, we'll click on this 6 selected accounts just to see what we've selected here. So on this one, we're going to say they can see the checking account. We have a youth restricted or like a dedicated account, monies that was given to the youth ministry. They'll be able to see what type of balance they have left there. And then as we get into the income accounts, they're going to be able to see their youth fund and the income accounts. They'll also, under expenses, be able to see under the education area anything that has to do with youth. So the youth camp, the youth mission trip, and general youth expenses. Nothing else they'll be able to see unless we come in here and put a check mark in some other area. So that's the only thing they'll be able to see. If we make any check marks in here too, that would mean that they would be able to see that information. It automatically will save. If I do that, there's no other save button that I need to do. I just make the check mark there. So since I'm not really changing anything, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the X. But that is how you create roles. The other thing is after you've created the role, then you want to give somebody access. Well, how do you do that? Well, you come in here under users and you click on I want to add a new one. Put in their email address in here, put in the role in which you're going to give them access. And once you put in this email address and you click submit, it will email them out access and they'll get an email. They'll be able to click on that, create their login for themselves, and then they have access into the software, but only the permission that you've allowed them. So any restrictions that you've put in there, they're restricted from. So you as a main treasurer or the one that's involved there as a main administrator will be able to manage that really at a top level. So we're getting close to the end here. I don't want to fail to show you quickly the reports that we have within a ledger. So we looked at some things before. We talked about the general ledger a little bit, but this is where we have the things that we've done today, like when we created that check, it's going to show that here, or made a payment. It's going to show what we've done thus far. So those type of things that we're going to be able to see in here on this ledger. If we wanted to group everything by payees, we can click on this, and now it's going to group everything according to each payee. As I scroll down here a little bit further, so we can see our Allied Trash, Ameren Electric, and on down there more. So any type of thing that we'll be able to see, and this is, again, just for the year of 2017 that I have selected up here at the very top here, according to this. I can also group things according to accounts. So if I click and group by account, then it's going to put it according to each account that I have, so I can see what's been happening here in each account based upon just at the account level. We'll take a look here at the income and expenses. So with this one, we'll be able to see the income and the 2017 budget, the actuals, the percentage of budget, and what's remaining. You can also collapse any of these. So if you just want to see it at a very higher level, you can, or if you want to see it at more of a granular level, you can see that as well. So however you want to view those, you can do. And at the bottom here, of course, it does show the income less expense. We'll be able to see also a chart of accounts report, which breaks this down. Again, you can also always collapse some of these if you wanted to do so, or you can expand them. But this does show, as you can see here, the starting balance, ending, your debits and credits, and the changes, plus or minuses, or the percentage of change. So you can collapse these for your assets, liabilities, income, and expenses, and see it more of a higher level if you wish. And then you can see your balance sheet here too. So the last thing we can show here too is the event log. And the event log really is more of an accountability. So each and every time that we do something or make a change, it's going to tell you who made that change, what was that change, and you can even click in there to see that type of transaction. So it does give you this so that way, again, it's going to prevent the ill-intentioned from making mistakes or from actually changing software without it showing exactly what every single transaction took place, what every change was, and who did that. So it keeps that included in here. So you'll be able to see more information as you kind of scroll down here, or any notes that were in there too. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to kind of look back here, and I'm going to click back here to my screen. Hang on just a moment here. going to go back here and go back to my my slide. And with this slide here too, it really talks about that we do have a free trial. And so I want to encourage anybody that is interested to go ahead and go to the website, the360ledger.com. You'll find it on there an orange button where you can start the free trial. I know it seems like, well, that's an odd time. It's 37-day trial. Well, wonder why it's that long. Well, we want to make sure that you can actually have a full month to be able to do your transactions and during your trial, and then also give you extra time so if you want to reconcile anything too, then when you get your statement you can go back and you can reconcile, and you can do that as well. So again, this is my contact information, so you can feel free to contact me, or the 800 number here too will take you into the sales team, so you can contact them during the trial too. You can feel free to ask questions. We allow questions you can call in, you can use that little box there to be able to ask questions. It's going to go into our support team, and even though you feel like, well, why have a trial? Are you really even going to answer any of my questions? We will. So we will be responsive to you no matter if you have Ledger already or if you're just taking a trial. So the time of questions and answer, I'm going to take a peek over here to see if there's any questions that we have here. Not really seeing any questions too much here. Really, there are, within the Ledger is really more of a, it's a cash-based, fund-based accounting software. So it's really more like a church would run its checkbook, or an individual would run their checkbook. So it's not like a business. So there's a little bit of a difference in regards to how Ledger operates than some other different softwares that are like that. It's not an accrual software. Again, it's cash-based. So that's one difference that you'll find sometimes within some other accounting softwares. So I'm not seeing any other questions that are showing up here. So again, I do appreciate your time today and showing up and being here. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. We'll be glad to help answer any questions that you have. Thanks again for your time today on a Tuesday, and may God bless you as you continue to check out different softwares, and as you look into Church360 Ledger, let us know how we might be able to help you. Have a great day, and thanks again for attending.